How are you guys doing? You look fucking tired. Okay, cool. I think I know like 90% of you in here. So yeah. So if you don't know me, so my name is Phillip. Actually based in I'm based in the Atlantic seaboard. I've been staying in Cape Town for 9 years now. So I was born in Limpopo, now I get to do this, which is really cool. So I just want to put you in my head a bit, because people always think I'm weird. And I just want you to understand how I see the world and how I get to do the things I do. But also, the slides are not complete, I'm just going to talk. And I just want you to maybe see how I think can help you make decisions better. So I'm actually working on a book. It's going to be based on this topic. The reason is I see the world in a really weird way, and it just makes sense. So okay, cool. So my background stems from business and corporate management consultancy. So I started a business consultant firm when I was like 17 years old, which was 8-9 years ago. And then 2020, I went into venture capital, which is private equity. So it's like we invest in businesses. We do it organically. And also, I'm also a software engineer. I code full stack. And then I have a lot of jobs. So one of my jobs is I advise startups at Startup Grind. I mentored Alan Gray, which is here. I'm involved in a lot of business communities around the world, including the World Economic Forum and the Silicon Cape, Heavy Chef. So I'm an industry mentor in a way. So for business, for tech companies, for careers and all of that. So, okay, some of the slides are empty. Okay. So I want to introduce you to a concept called hypoglycemia, right? So which is, your brain has this thing of okay, let me show you actually. So the concept is this, it's a reading ability in which the person reads the words or sentence even though the letters are jumbled, right? So for example, according to a research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters are in a word. The only important thing is that the first and the last letter must be in the right place, right? This is how weird your brain is, And so this is the other thing about your human brain. So whenever I mentor people, I always tell them to read books. So the reason I tell them that is, you can read Gandhi, or Nelson Mandela, or John Van Riebeeck, blah, blah, blah. Those are good guys, right? But you see, this thing is so powerful that you can be like Putin or Hitler, right? But it's so complicated that each and every one of us lives in their own little world, and we have a different perspective on the world. So you're gonna actually get to understand why I'm saying that. So there's something we call the wheel of emotions. So it's mostly our central nervous system, how we think, how we behave, how we have emotional intelligence, how we think, how we plan, how we execute. So all of this, they make our whole world, right? And people can be nice or they can be really bad. But I'm gonna tell you now. Okay. So why do humans behave the way they do, right? Why would you have a good guy, Mother Teresa, or you can have some guy who burns people in a, what do you call it? In a chamber, right? What is the difference between those people? And what have I learned over the years? And how did I sort of like get out of my own limitations? So now, people are like this. So we have this thing of, like we can be savage and violent and narcissistic, but you also have this spectacular fits of kindness. So we all have it. It's not like I'm always happy, I can't be narcissistic. I can, right? But where does this come from? So I grew up in a really weird family where I was always the quiet one, was bullied a lot, I went through a lot. I was depressed by the age of 17, and at that time I really didn't know where I was going in my life, So I was nearly killed once. I got my first surgery when I was 17. My mom died when I was 17. When I was 16, my grandmother died. So for that 2 years in my life, from the age of 16 to 17, I did not understand how the world works. So in my family, my aunt used to hate me, right? So she had a different, you see these two sides? Right? I didn't understand. So every time I'll ask my grandmother, like, why is she bullying me? Why is she doing this? And it's like, don't question it, right? So what I wanted to do was study human behavior. I want to understand how people think. Why they do what they do. Why are they full of shit? So I'm gonna give you a context on, I just call it a machine, but it's not like a machine, just like a computer program. So what is the difference between me and an iPad or a computer, right? So the way I see the world is I see the world through patterns and calculations and numbers and measurements. So, for example, you and a computer can process information and make calculations. Secondly, you're programmed to do specific tasks. So your programming can be your environment that you grow up in. For a computer, you give it instructions on how to perform its tasks. The other thing is we can store and retrieve information, which means I call it like a memory bank. So in your head, you have two tellers, the bad guy and the good guy. So every time you need to make a decision, either you consult one of them. But both of them have a bank full of memories, the bad ones and the good ones. So if you spiral into bad emotions, you say to Mr. or Mrs. Defeat, hey, give me reasons why I'm gonna fail. And then she's gonna go back deep into your mind and get all the shit that happened to you. And be like, okay, here's the reason. But there's another side, which is the good guy, who also has memories of the things that have worked in the past that you've tried. You were scared of failing, but they just worked. So we can store and retrieve information. The other thing is we can communicate with each other. A computer can communicate with another computer. I can communicate with you. I can also communicate with a dog. Other entities. And skip that. So what extremes do we have, between me and a machine? You see, a human being's creativity, imagination, and intuition can lead them to irrational thinking and harmful decisions and behavior. That's the extremes that we have with both machines. Because a machine can be discriminative. You can program it to do that. And another thing is, if a program is not properly designed or implemented, it can perpetuate bias and discrimination. Same as you. If you program in a different way, you're going to treat people in a different way. The other one, we have so much free will, but sometimes it leads to immoral and unethical actions, which is the same with computers. If they are not restricted, they can make any decisions or take any kind of action. And yeah, skip that. So now, I just want to put you in my head a bit on how I see things. It's weird, but I'll just explain to you. So this is what helped me to be where I am today. So I was not born rich, I never thought I had a future. I wanted to kill myself at some point, but I always thought the way I questioned things was wrong until I moved to Cape Town. I was like, hey, there's also other weirdos here, Yeah, So this is what I like. So let's just skip that. Okay. So I like lines, right? So every time I design something, I like to use lines because they sort of like tell me about precision. It can be any kind of line. But every time I'm looking at something, I'm looking at that line right now, I'm like, why is it not bent on the side, or why is it orange? I always question things. So every time I see something, I would just want to make it better. But I like lines. Lines are really cool. And the other one is I like shapes. So everything in my life is shapes. So it can be either they motivate me or they put me down. The colors, everything is what keeps me going. And I like magical colors. So I like playing around with animations. Every time I design something, I want it to be a bit animated, so it's a bit fun for me. But also animation has another meaning besides graphics design and all of that, so it's like being alive. The reason I like animations is because I relate every single project to a real life situation. I'm not sure, it's weird, that's not one. So I also like shades. So I can't paint with my hands, but on a computer I can. So every room that I walk into, I see all the colors. I question how tall is this thing, who was the supplier, who manufactured it, how much did it cost them. And I also love jumping thingers. I call them jumping thingers. They're just fun. So I like them because they bring fun to projects. I like when things are automated and they can do their own thing without you micromanaging them. And it's beautiful colors. They inspire me a lot. I love colors, and I love paint. It's actually streaming, so that's just gonna buffer. It's funny. And also, this is the colors. But let me check if I'm on track. Yes. So I also love space. So one of the things that kept me going when I was depressed was I would look up at the sky and imagine what it would be like to be on another planet. It kept me going because I felt like, okay, maybe we're not alone or we're alone, but I might be special because I'm here, But also I like really weird shapes. And this is also what keeps me going, is I can imagine, sometimes I just sit down and I design things that don't exist, so I can try to experiment and test how far my brain can go. And I also, okay, I think I'm gonna cut it here. Can I just take a slide? Let's see. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So I'm just gonna talk. I didn't finish the slide. So if you're not into software engineering or you're not a developer, there's this thing we call, I'll say, maybe a waterfall, or it's like a type of way that you manage a project. So one of the things that allowed, which I was doing unconsciously when I was young, was I would always look at something really big and be like, how the hell do I chop this down into things that I can do, right? And at the time I didn't know that was programming. So when I learned that, it actually helped me make better business decisions, which is, I think I have like 30 jobs, but every time I'm working with a client or I'm doing this, I always try to push myself to my limits to see how far my mind can go. Because I have like thousands of skills. But what is the lesson here? You see, there's a reason why this is not limited, right? I always try to like poke this all the time, like, what can you do? Because like you can be like Hitler, which means in a way there's no limit on how you control this. You see, this morphs the world around you. It can create things that don't even exist. That's what I learned. So whatever you're thinking, either it's bad or good, you're planting a seed, you're gonna sow it, you're gonna reap it. Yeah, one of those. But why am I doing this, So because I think I went through so much, and like for me, this I wanted to do this from a very young age. I enjoy this and other things, but the reason that I couldn't see it when I was young and I was going through all these things and feeling like I was an introvert, which is a choice, Yeah, it's a choice. I had to get out of it. How I learned how to not be shy, I took off my shoes, I started walking in the mall. Why? Because I was programmed to think that I'm an introvert. So my family will always say, Phillip is the quiet one. And I was like, I am the quiet one. Then I learned you can't make money, And I was like, no, I need to change this. So what is the verdict here? So one of the things that I did, I'm 25 years right now, right? I started my first company when I was 17 years old. So I was doing things unconsciously, but one of the things that really worked for me was, I don't believe in waiting and procrastinating. Some of you are pessimistic, which means you don't teach pessimism that we're stupid. When it comes to your mind, you're like, yeah, pessimism, you're right. I don't neglect anything. And the reason I decide, sometimes if I want to do something, I don't need to think about how it's gonna work out. I just do it. So most of you know technology, but I'm gonna give you a tip, which is what I use when I mentor, is that there's two types of people that go to work every day, right? There's this guy who goes to work, just wants to be there. There's a guy who's gonna get a promotion 3 times in a year. So what is the difference between those two people? Others take action, others are pessimistic. So what I teach my mentees, I've mentored thousands of people over the years. What I teach them is that you need to teach pessimism that, look, either the glass is half empty or it's half full, right? But if you disagree, like, I've been told that it's half empty, but it's also half full. Can't you handle both of them? No, it's not that hard, right? But one of the things that I always try to do is that I write in a lot of journals, but the things that I write, I don't even know how they're gonna come to pass. But what I always try to do is I apply the principles of programming, which can be, there's attributes in a program. I take those as habits. So what are my habits? How can I get better? So I go and rewrite my program and be like, okay, this is a bad habit, this is a bad habit, this is a bad habit. It's like attributes. But also, programs have hierarchies, just like humans. So your hierarchy sometimes, wherever you think you are, you can either go up or you can stay in the same place. But also hierarchies are powerful because they constrain us. So I also apply hierarchies in every project that I take. And another thing is, I always try to, 5 minutes, okay. I always try to find a way to also do the things that I'm not comfortable with. Because the same way a machine can be programmed, you can be programmed to think that the love of money is a sin, right? Some people can think that money is good. You can be programmed to think that drugs are bad. Some people don't care, right? You can be programmed to think that there isn't enough for everyone in the world. While some people think, actually, this world is abundant. You can be programmed to think, I can't do that because I didn't go to that school or I don't have this parents, But you can reprogram yourself to do whatever you want. But here's the kicker. Decision is the starting point of getting what you want. So when we create programs, we create like a storybook or, we're gonna do this. So if sometimes don't expect different results with the same circumstances if you don't want to change. Do you get what I'm saying? So when I was young, I had to reprogram myself to think, okay, what are the things that I'm doing every day that are not freaking working? Because I didn't want the last 6 months of the last 6 years of my life to be like the next 6 years. So how can you use like the way we I don't want to go deep into it because it's a lot of work, but how can you reprogram yourself to be up to date with the latest trends? Like for me, I'm lucky because I get access to test new technologies, so I'm always valid. But also one of the things I learned when I was young was, we don't get paid for time, we get paid for value. So some of you want to specialize, you want to go into machine learning, some of you want to start businesses and all that. The only way you get to become more is if you have more skills. If you have more skills, you can help more people. That means you have more value. And if you can do that, like even just reading books, I read a lot of books every day. They keep me informed because information is power. I don't care what they call power, because information is power. The more you know, the more skills you have, the better you can serve other human beings. One of the things that I made a commitment to myself when I was young was, I don't ever want to succeed in things that do not matter. I don't want to waste my time on trivial things and acquiring meaningless objectives. It's easy to walk up the staircase, only to realize at the end of your life you're in the wrong building. So what I want you to do is get back home today and say to myself, look at your last week, your previous one, your previous year, and say to yourself, what are the things that I should be doing now that I'm not doing? What am I neglecting? Where am I limiting myself? And then if you do that, it's like magic, Once you do that, you can reprogram yourself to do other things, You want to go to the gym, go to the fucking gym. You want to, you want to learn a new language, you can do that. You want to learn a new programming language, you can do that.
Thank you very much, Phillip. That just gives a lot to think about. Give a chance to ask questions and and then we can have some time to network as well at the end. So I'm opening up the stage. If anyone has questions, any thoughts, I'm gonna pass the mic.
Hi Phillip, you said that you try to push yourself every time, but then how do you, don't you ever get burnout, or how do you handle that burnout?
You see, if you don't like what you do, you're gonna burn out. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not doing the same thing every day. For me, It can be I'm mentoring at Allen Gray, or I'm at Startup Grind, or I'm doing this, or I'm working on a project with a client, or I'm having coffee with someone. So I'm not doing the same thing over and over again. But if you don't love something, there's no reason to do it. You're gonna burn out. Because you're forcing yourself. Do you get what I'm saying? You're not driven. You can work with me. I'll work you under the table. You get what I'm saying? I'll work you under the table. Because I love it. This for me, I wanted this. Do you get what I'm saying? I wanted this. Because my job is to serve humanity. It's not about me. That's my job. So if it's up to you. You see, this, again, you limit yourself based on your perspective. So you can think, oh, I can only have one job. So why do other people have 5 jobs, right? How do they do it? They don't limit themselves. So maybe just expect a little bit more of yourself. Like demand it of yourself to do more. And maybe, you won't burn out.
Cool. Do we have another question? Okay, thank you very much, Phillip. That was great. Thank you.